and invest. Now, most analysts believe that the policymakers will acknowledge today the economy's improvements, but leave the Fed's policies overall the same. Cypress is looking at different ways to fight off bankruptcy after rejecting the terms of a European bailout. Cyprus's finance minister says that he's in talks with Russia to come up with an alternative. Talks are also taking place between the Cypriot government and the country's central bank to come up with another way to raise funds without seizing up to 10% of people's bank savings. But with this situation in Cyprus ongoing, government there looking for that plan B to prevent bankruptcy. We're joined by a woman who's quite familiar with the situation in Europe and who has written several books on alternative economic strategies. Author and economist Dr.Petra Beck, live in Calgary. Petra, good to see you again.
Good morning, Pat.
What's your sense of what's going on in Cyprus?
I think it's a terrible situation because I just want to quote the German finance minister. He said the government of Cyprus has to be very upfront with his own people, because if there's no solution found soon, the banks might never reopen. The levy that was proposed and imposed over the weekend was a condition by Europe for a bailout of $10 billion, and that would have been provided $4 billion. So almost half.
Okay, but it's precedent-setting in that they went into people's bank accounts to get that money. A dangerous precedent, Petra, I dare say.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is confiscation. But the alternative is what? Bankruptcy of the banking system. If the money is not being provided within the next few days, what is going to happen? I mean, the outrage of people led to the parliament deciding yesterday not to go for a levy. The banks are still closed. People are relying on their government over there to produce some kind of solution. One leader's traveled to Russia alone. Indeed, Cyprus has already received a loan for over 2 billion euros from Russia, which is due in 2016. They want to have a lower interest rate. The interest rate is 4.5, but of course they want to have more funds from Russia because there is a lot of deposits in Cyprus by Russian citizens.
Okay, Petra, what if Russia doesn't pony up with the money and they're unable to tax the actual bank accounts and the Cypriot banking system collapses? Is that important?
It's exactly important. In terms of money, you might say no, because Cyprus is only 0.5% of the European GDP. But what does it mean for the psychological sentiment on the stock markets? And you've seen that already yesterday, that almost all stock markets in Europe went down considerably. Indeed, of course, Spain and Greece have suffered the most because the contamination of Cyprus stems mostly from Greece.
Oh, yeah, because the banks were holding on to Greek bonds and Greek bonds collapsed. I get that part, Petra, but I mean, if they were to get wiped off the map, it's a psychological impact, but your point is well made. It's not a big financial impact. You'd think the markets would just say, so what? Because those banks, it's been a tax haven. Cyprus has been a tax haven.
Yes.
And those banks have capitalized on that tax haven status.
Absolutely, and that was not sustainable, and that's why Europe did not jump to its help like it did in the case of Greece. Because it's a tax haven, they don't get enough tax income. The country is basically bankrupt. The banking system makes 7 times the amount of the GDP of Cyprus. That tells you already a lot of the amount of deposits that are being parked there. So, well, it's a disaster for the people. I feel for the people of Cyprus, and the people of Cyprus should actually push their government right now to come up with a reasonable solution. For me, the result will be that they might pull out of the euro because they cannot go through a bankruptcy. But what will they do if they pull out of the euro? Then they have to print their own money again, and during that transition period, a lot of people will lose everything.
Petra, would you have a suggestion for the people of Cyprus as another solution?
Well, I would hit the streets again because that was quite effective. But unfortunately, people don't know what it means, what is happening right now. The people, but there was an outcry not to get this levy because a lot of people could not pull money out of their accounts over the week. And of course they were outraged, but what is the alternative? Me as an economist, I know that this condition is not being met on time. That means that the banks will not reopen again and they will lose everything.
Yeah.
So
you're
they
looking
have to, people have to push their government, people have to say, well, listen, they have to do the same thing again as they did on Monday and Tuesday. Just go and demonstrate and tell your government to come up with a solution, not to lose all their money.
Yeah, but
I mean,
the people don't have a solution at their fingertips.
No.
What do you think is
No.
a possible solution, other than going to Russia, obviously?
Well, a possible solution is, and that is very dire and very bitter to say, but the only possible solution in this scenario means that they would have to go through a certain levy, and that would at least leave them 90% or more of their deposit instead of nothing, if the government doesn't come up with another solution. It's terrible to say.
Well, we'll see how it plays out, Petra. Thanks very much.
I know. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We've been joined from Calgary by the author and economist, Dr.Petra Beck. Still to come on AM Agenda, pro-life activist says that the police destroyed his property while he was protesting. Alex Dunn has that story.